Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be. Welcome to the Studio Q Show Live. My name is Quinn Jacobson, and I'm going to try to moderate this for us this morning, this afternoon, this evening, wherever you might be. We're going to do a 2-hour show today. I'm a busy guy, and I've got things to do, so we're going to go for 2 hours. I'm going to start sending the link out for the live video feed right now. And as people come in, I've got a couple of things that I want to talk about, and we can see where the show leads us, or maybe somebody can fill me in on where or what we talked about last time. Sorry, I'm just trying to get these links out here. Share. Went to everybody in my circles right now, so I don't think anybody should be with waiting to come in. So if you come into the live show or the video chat, that's fine. I just wanted to talk to you guys today about a couple of things before we start whatever we're going to do in here. And it's kind of technical related, but I wanted to address something that I've witnessed over the last probably at least 8 years, maybe 10 years working here, interacting with people, working in the process. And that's about understanding the process. On average, I just did my homework here. On average, I answer about 100 questions a week. In 7 days, I answer about 100 questions, between 10 and 15 questions a day. Some days are more, some days are less, but that's the average. So 100 questions a week, 52 weeks in a year, that's 5,200 questions. So over 5,000 questions a year. And what I find, and what I think you guys might find interesting, is the nature of the questions. Not necessarily what they're about. I mean, sometimes it's kind of interesting, but the nature of the questions. The nature of the questions are posed more like, I don't want to know why this is the way it is, but just give me the solution so I can fix this. And a little fly there. So I can fix this. So they don't want to know what went wrong or why it went wrong and what those compounds or components in the process are doing. They just want a quick fix to the problem. And this is kind of the nature of our lives in the 21st century, right? We can get on, we can Google anything, anywhere we're at, and so I get that. But the problem with taking that approach to this process is you're going to find that you hit dead ends constantly. And the moment you need everything to go right, it won't. And you'll be lost. You won't know what to do. You just can't do it that way. So. Oh, good morning, good afternoon, Roger, welcome. We'll start getting people in here. If you're trying to get in, I just sent, you know what? I'm going to take this link, I'm going to take this link and post it over on the Facebook Wet Collodion page. If that doesn't help people get in, I don't know what else I can do. So let me jump over here. Let me jump over to Wet Collodion. Here we go. And here's the link. So if anybody asks, the link is in, let's see, there it is. The link, I'm just going to say, we're live. Come on in if you can. So I apologize, it's technical stuff. After doing this so long, you'd think we'd have this down. We're live. Come on in if you can. Right. So, okay, so the link is on the Facebook page. So if anybody asks, and I'll put it in the chat too. I mean, why not? Okay, yeah, thank you. Oh, Roger used this one. Perfect. Yeah, good. So it's in the chat too. So if you're in the chat, I know we got a few viewers. If you're in the chat and you can't get in, just click on one of those links. So back to what I was saying. The nature of the questions that are coming in, it's not necessarily what the questions are about, technically speaking. If you're in the chat and you can't get in, just click on one of those links. So, welcome, Aaron. I'm going to mute you here real quick. If you have feedback coming through, there you go. Welcome. So the nature of the questions are, I don't want to really learn the process, how the process works. I just want you to give me a quick fix to this. And I mean, I get text messages and instant messages and emails and all kinds of stuff, and it's always based on this kind of idea of, rather than approaching it saying, hey, this is what just happened, can you explain to me why it happened and how I can learn to mitigate the problem in the future? It doesn't always work that way. Like I said, most of the time I get 100 questions a week. I'd say 70 to 80%, 70 to 80 of those, 70 to 80% of them are questions that are based in something that you could resolve if you understood how the process worked. Then I get things like, I had somebody send me the other day an image from another board. I mean, actually from some other board, and it was the plasticizer in the varnish. You could see obviously the cracks in the plate in the varnish, and people didn't even know what that was. They'd never seen it. They'd never read about it. And it's strange because my books are all over out there. I explain in detail what a plasticizer is, how it works. Melting images. They pour varnish on it, melts their images over and over again. Somebody posted that on the Collodion.com forum board the other day, and it was really interesting because I said, I didn't answer the question right away. I said, what was that? Was that the image eating the image away? God, I can't remember. I think it was a varnish question. Oh, no, it was. It was a varnish question. It was a different one, though. They said, I just took a workshop, or I'd been in a workshop, and they were using a toaster to heat the plate and the varnish. Is it important to heat the plate and the varnish? So when you have a sentence or a question, the lead up to the question is, I just took a workshop, and then ask a question like that, it tells me you didn't take a workshop. Or if you took a workshop, you need to reevaluate who's teaching you or what they're teaching. This is a real problem because as my emails increase and my messages increase from people that go out and take workshops, all they do is they come back to me and ask for the questions, right? So I don't mind helping people, but what I do mind is people teaching a workshop and not teaching people how this process works. Not showing them how to do it. You can train an animal how to do it. How it works, why it works, and why it doesn't work. Those are the questions, right? Not how do I hold my plate. I mean, that is such a, I think it's such a poor way to approach a process. All you're doing is setting yourself up for failure. The minute you need the process to function and work, it won't. And you won't know what to do. You'll be completely lost. So when I say I teach workshops for people who really want to learn the process, who really are engaged enough to look beyond making a half a dozen or a dozen images in a workshop and walking away and say, look, I make wet collodion photographs. No, you don't. You emulate and you mimic someone in a demonstration that had things set up that you could make a plate. You went through the motions of doing that. You didn't. They can't answer one question about the process. So I want to redefine what taking a workshop means. And you don't have to take a workshop from me, obviously. But when you follow up with me, and I get 100 questions a week, obviously I'm not teaching 100 people a week. There's someone else out there. You got to mute yourself, guys, when you come in. So I think we are. But I'm not teaching 100 people a week. So the average 100 questions I get a week are from other people teaching people, or, quote, teaching people. So I just wanted to address that and kind of throw it out there to really recognize there's a difference between mimicking, physically mimicking something, and actually understanding it and understanding how it works. And some of these people are supposed to understand and have been working in wet collodion for a long time, and they don't know how the process works. I would call that a fraud or a phony or something. Because at the end of the day, if you're calling yourself a wet collodion artist or photographer, and you don't know how the medium or the process you're working in functions, I don't think that's a fair title to give yourself. Because the prerequisite to calling yourself something is understanding what you're doing. Very, very few people understand this process. Believe me, I get 100 questions a week. Very few people understand this process. So I'm at the point where I just say now, when the questions come in, I answer back with a question, right? So, oh, I just took a workshop and they were using a toaster to heat the plates and the varnish. Is that okay to use a toaster, or do I need to use a spirit lamp? And I wrote back and I said, why do you heat the plate? Why do you heat the varnish? I'll throw that out there. Who wants to answer that question? Wow, crickets. Nobody can answer that question in this panel?
Yeah, to let alcohol and ether evaporate and improve preservation of the collodion. Yeah.
Say it again. Say it loud.
Yeah, I say that you warm up the plate because this way the alcohol and the ether can evaporate. And
what's in the that's correct. What's in the alcohol that you need to evaporate?
Is like a solvent that can like ruin the collodion over time.
No.
I don't know.
Okay, good guess. Good guess. But to my point, here's a panel of people working in collodion photography, and I should have every one of you saying, yeah, I know what this is. Every one of you should be able to say that. That's my problem. Somehow we need to work past this kind of demonstration stuff and start working into the process itself and trying to find how this process works, and then solving problems from that point on. I'm going to leave that out there until someone can answer it. Go ahead, Roger, chime in and tell them. Roger's chatting over here. Chad said water as well too, right? So it's the water. So you're using 95% ethanol. 5% of that ethanol is water. Have you ever taken water and gum sandarac and put them together, or any base, any sap, any varnish, and put them together? You get this milky, mucky, nasty-looking opaque surface, if you will. The gum sandarac goes blue opaque almost immediately in contact with water. So when you don't evaporate the water out of that varnish quick enough, your plate will dry dead. It'll dry with a matte finish. That's the water in the alcohol that you didn't get out quick enough before the varnish had a chance to set. So those are really basic questions, right? Super basic. I mean, if you came to one of my workshops, we'd be talking about metathesis and double decomposition. We're not talking about a plasticizer or getting water out of the varnish. We're talking about, you know, halides and how things affect them and how things go awry or wrong, and how you resolve those things. So I'm a little bit, I don't want to say disheartened this week, but after I had an extremely heavy week of technical questions blitzed to me, and every single one of them were like that. It was like, I just watched the process, now I came home, I bought a kit, now I came home and I'm mimicking what I saw. I absolutely don't understand what I'm doing at all. I'm just mimicking these physical actions, and something goes wrong, and it's not that I want to figure out why it went wrong and how to fix that. Look, let me put it this way. When a person is physically ill and they're coughing and their nose is running, they got a headache and everything, those are outward signs of something deeper that's wrong, right? We want to talk about the virus. We don't want to talk about the cough. The cough is, okay, that's a cough, and we know. We want to talk about how we get rid of the virus. And that's the problem we have here. People are teaspoon deep on this knowledge. It's amazing to me, after 15 years of seeing this, that more people aren't on board with, like, understanding the process. And more people, I mean, God, how many workshops are there out there now? I see people advertising workshops constantly. It's like, I've never heard of these people. I don't know who they are. Not that that's important, but I mean, I'm in this world. I should at least, if you're teaching the process, I'm sure you'd at least know who the other people are, that they have some, you know, credentials that way. It's really kind of mind-boggling to me. And why I'm bitching and ranting about this is because it eventually all comes back to me. It all comes back to me. I'm sure Osterman gets hit hard. I don't know about Coffer. People say, I don't want to write a letter and wait 2 weeks for an answer about my cracked varnish or my dead matte finish. So they don't really write letters much, but a lot of this blowback comes back into my inbox and my text messages and my instant message. And so here's somebody making a proposition, a knowledge claim that they can teach this process, having people enter into that engagement, and then coming out completely knowledgeless, and then running into me and saying, "Oh, yeah, write him. He'll answer your questions." And they blast off email to me. I'm not discouraging people from doing that. What I'm asking people to do is put a little more effort into it and really assess if you want to learn the process or you just want to mimic someone and try to get some good results and have a show or a publication or whatever else the hell people do now with this stuff. I mean, if that's what you're after, you're coming to the wrong person. I'm not interested in working with people like that. I'm interested in working with people that really have the desire to gain this knowledge in a real way. Making knowledge claims without backing it up with any evidence or proof is a poor position to be in this process. Because it's not if, but when you run into your problems, and there are going to be a myriad of problems in this process, you're going to be calling me and texting me. I've had people out in the field in remote locations texting me about a problem they're having there. Now, that's not a bad thing, but a lot of times it's a basic thing, again, we're going back to. I mean, we should all be very well aware of how to resolve fogging and veiling and scumming issues and cracked varnish and matte finishes and you know, all kinds of all those basic issues. When do we get to talk about the real science behind this process and really make some strides toward maybe improving it or finding ways to, you know, to make the process work better for us? Anyway, that's my rant. Oh, Eric, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, wherever you might be. I've just been rambling. So, Eric asks, why do you continue to answer those kinds of questions? If it's in your book, you shouldn't necessarily feel the need to help on that. Yeah, you're right, Eric. But you know what? About 30 to 40% of the people that write me don't have my book. They've taken workshops from other people. So they don't even have a reference. And why I continue to answer them is because I want to challenge them. I answer them back now with a question to ask them if they know why they're asking that question. And so I take it as kind of a teaching moment or their learning moment to help them. It's not that I don't want to help people. It's just that I don't want to encourage people to be lazy and to expect something that people have worked decades to get and have that overnight. It's kind of an unfair assessment, and it's fake and it's unreal, and it's going to come back to bite you. Karma's a bitch. It'll come back around and get you. Believe me, it's just a matter of time. You're a fraud with this process, and you're out doing public demonstrations, or God forbid, teaching a workshop, or making an important photograph somewhere, and all of a sudden your silver bath's off, your developer's gone, your whatever it is, and you're absolutely clueless. That's when your true colors show. That's when you know. That separates the men from the boys and the women from the girls, believe me. And the people that are writing me an average of 100 times a week, 80% of those don't have those skills to be able to figure that out. So what I'm saying is we have a real lack of education and knowledge in this process. And then moreover, we have Facebook pages and blogs and everything else with all kinds of experts now that are giving terrible advice. Boards of people are posting stuff about things they are clueless about, They're repeating misinformation over and over again. And if people would stop for a minute and look at the science, it's not difficult to figure out. It's not difficult to figure out. I mean, honestly. So I'm going to stop ranting, and we'll start this show with something a little more positive, maybe, hopefully. But if anybody has any comments on that, you're welcome to chime in. I'm just saying, work toward really knowing the process and understanding how to figure out your problems and understanding why those problems occur and being repeatable, and put science in your vocabulary. Use science. That's what this is. It's not witchy, hoodoo, voodoo, witchcraft, and you spin around 3 times and sprinkle dust and things work. This is science. You've got to understand science. So work toward that is all I'm asking. And yes, you can keep asking me questions, but I don't, you know, at the end of the day, I don't know. There's going to be some point in time where it's like, you know, somebody posted on this very show, is this wet plate related? Honest to God, seriously? Is that where we're at? Is this wet plate related? I mean, come on. Come on. You know? Honestly. Anyway, anybody want to take the floor?
Yeah,
anybody got some good information?
Just want to quick reflection on that. I think the problem with most people that you talk about is they just want a solution. People
wait, who is this?
Aaron from Sweden.
Oh, Aaron, sorry, I didn't see you down there. Sorry. Welcome, Aaron. Go ahead.
Thanks. I was just thinking, because people come from the digital photography background, and everything tells that, and you know, they push a button and there's an image, and people don't know how a digital camera works on the inside. So why they expect to know this? I mean,
right? They should have the knowledge, though, that they can know this. They don't need to know the science behind charge coupled devices and zeros and ones writing to a CF card, but they should be able to know. They should have the knowledge that this is knowable, right?
Yeah. But I'm just thinking it's from the modern from our modern world. We have so much technology around us that we just take for granted, and that's the reason why people just want a quick fix, because we're not used to this way of handling with things. You know, we leave it to the experts.
Exactly. Yeah. And you know what? To your point, there's a great book out called The Shallows: How the Internet's Rewired Our Brain by Nicholas Carr. And in that book, he talks about how our attention span is about that long. We can't even read 2 or 3 paragraphs in a news story. We don't read books anymore. Our attention span is so tiny that we basically need that fix of the next click and the next endorphin, the next dopamine rush, right? Click, 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 click. So as Aaron says, this plays over into our lifestyle with this old, arduous process. You've got to sit down and you got to make chemistry and you got to work this equipment. You actually need to know how things work and know temperatures and know all kinds of stuff that in your normal life you wouldn't know. Whereas, like Aaron just said, now we're relying on technology to resolve all of our problems, right? I mean, I think I gave the analogy last time. The turn of the century, New York City and Chicago, the streets were covered in horse poop, right? Because of the wagons and the carts, right? So the technology resolution to that was what? The combustible engine. How'd that work out for us? That's awesome, right? So technology isn't always the answer. I mean, you could argue it's all technology. Wet collodion process was a huge technological advance at the time. But to rely on it to solve our problems in the situation that we're in today, pushing a button or mimicking some action that you saw somebody do in your 3-hour workshop, quote unquote, and then going out and trying to ordering a kit, and then going out and trying to make photographs on your own and having all kinds of problems. You're not calling them back. You're finding someone else online and accessing them. And I'm sure Osterman gets the same damn thing. I'm sure anyone that's accessible, that people know that they have some knowledge, they're getting pinged. It reminds me, in America here, we have this store called Walmart, And Walmart, this is what Walmart does. Walmart makes billions and billions of dollars. And what they do is they hire people for 30 hours a week. They pay them a tiny little wage. They don't pay them any benefits, so they don't have a living wage. So what do? They go out and they ask our U.S. government for social welfare service because they don't make enough money. So Walmart gets a $6 billion tax break every year, if you will, because we subsidize workers that work for Walmart. This is kind of the same thing happening here. There are people out there teaching workshops, and then somebody else has to come back around and mop up the real knowledge and the real information about this process. That's how I see it, right? That's how I see this going down. So if you're going to teach this process, you better damn well be able to answer questions and be accessible for people so other people aren't mopping up for you. And you guys know who you are. You're watching this, right? I mean, you know who you are.
Hello, Quinn. Can I
Please.
Something? I understand what you say. I think my reality in Brazil is a bit different because we don't have a lot of experts, and actually it is just starting right now. And maybe I'm the first one to really take on it because we can't actually buy the collodion. So people doing here is people that can make the cotton. So we had to learn to make the cotton to start it, and I learned it. I'm learning it very slowly, but it happens that maybe I'm the best one right now in Brazil. I'm actually getting some results. I try to study. I try to know things and to tell when I don't know why. I give the references. But the way it is, I think that when I do the workshops, I almost don't call workshops. I call experience in number typing or something like that, because and I tell the students that probably they won't be able to at the end of the workshop to go and buy stuff and start doing. That will be a very painful and slow process to make it happen. So in my workshops, what I do is that I try to explain, but I tell them it's a longer workshop. It takes 4 days, because I tell them to take advantage of my structure and my chemistry, to do a lot of pictures, to experiment with the language, and at the end of the 4 days, they can teach if it was enough. That's it, that's good, or if they like it so much that they want to go forward and they want to go to your workshop in the United States, they want to pay more money to go to Osterman or to you, or they want to invest the time and the money.
You're right.
So that's it. I don't feel I know I have all the knowledge, but as it is, I have the most knowledge in Brazil. So and most people don't talk in English also.
Yeah.
So my workshops is just a chance for people here in Brazil to experiment and to make it work and to see if it's worth, or they want to pursue it, or if it's enough.
Right. I appreciate that, Roger. And I don't know about your workshops, or I would call them maybe demonstrations more.
Yes.
You're right. There is a process to work into this. I'm not really addressing people turning other people onto the collodion process. That's great. What I'm addressing is, and Jan just wrote, from a different point of view, if a photographer buys prepared chemicals, silver bath, all that, she just mostly just uses the process to produce photographs and don't care about the chemicals. What do you think? Well, I would reverse that and ask you, Jan, how often is it that you can buy a chemistry kit and in your own world be successful and be happy with that and not have to care about the chemicals? When is that possible in this process, not to care about the chemicals or how they work? That's what I'd ask.
Can you hear me?
No, I was asking Jan. He's proposing, what about the people that don't care about the process? They just want to buy a chemical kit and make some photographs.
Yes. Can you hear me?
What about that? How often has that worked out for you?
So, can you hear me?
Yes.
I have started, or I started maybe now it will be 5 years ago, and at the beginning, I used really only varnish, which I bought prepared. I have to say, from the beginning, I started to prepare all the chemicals by myself. From 2 reasons.
And how did that work out? Is what I'm asking. How did that work out for you?
Yeah, at the beginning, the basic failures, you know, foggy plates and so-called austeries and the problems with silver bath. At the beginning, when I remember and when I go back with my thoughts, it has worked somehow, but of course with lots of problems. Yeah. And after some years of experiences, I have updated my formulas or used recommended formulas, and now I think I have some stable environment, I can say. But from a different point of view, if you think about people who just learn the process, I have to say just learn. It means that you buy a workshop, you go there, some not highly experienced wet plate photographer who can teach you will precisely demonstrate you the process. The people or some people maybe are satisfied with it, and they simply buy chemicals which you know now can buy online and work with them. But from my point of view, for me it is not interesting. There is a lack of some part of the process which is not under your control, and for me it is not so drawing or not so interesting to do it like this.
Yeah, so those people that you're talking about that find satisfaction in just buying a kit and working with it, those are the people that contact me. Those are the very people that I'm talking about that create this problem, because you know, and you can't really compare this process with anything modern. This is a process that if you're going to get involved with it, I say if you have an interest in it, I say you should get involved in it on a level that you can sustain yourself, right? That you're not buying kits from another company. You know, I sell collodion kits once in a while to workshop students, and I really don't like doing it. I don't like doing it. I don't even want to sell them a kit, because all that's doing is enabling them to just do exactly what you're talking about. And if you really want to be in the process, you should learn to make your chemistry like you're talking about. You should know how it works, and you should figure out over time how all this comes together. Because if you don't, unlike a modern digital Canon 5D camera, this process will break on you and stop working immediately. And if you don't know how to fix it, you're done making photographs. If your battery runs out of your 5D, get another battery. If you're, you know, whatever, it's not like that. It doesn't work that way. This is a process that demands your knowledge and attention and an environment. You have to be aware of everything: time, temperature, humidity, light. It's not a process that you can equate or equivocate with any type of photography today. It doesn't work that way. And that's what I mean when I talk about people coming into this process thinking that you know, anybody that knows anything is, and it's just so terribly interested in answering their questions because they want to be so lazy about it. It's not true. I don't want to enable people. I don't want to encourage this 21st century dystopia in instant gratification, the death of expertise, and the anti-intellectualism that's going on. I don't want to encourage that. And that's what's going on here. And we have a big problem with it. And I'm asking people that teach the process to be a little more involved with their students, so their students don't inundate other people that, you know, that want to spend their time helping the people that really want to learn. That's what I'm saying. Any other thoughts? We can, let's see.
Maybe I want just few sentences to this topic. Can you hear me?
Yes.
There are two, let's say, kind of workshops in general. If we are speaking about workshops at the moment, let's complete this topic and then continue maybe with other interesting things. As you have mentioned, yeah, there are teachers or photographers who can teach very well workshop, but with some, let's say, limitations. They have not so deep knowledge about the process itself, but they are great teachers. I appreciate this approach of that people. And if you split them to two workshops, let's say from the time point of view and also, of course, business point of view, there are really two big questions, or let's say one big question, because if you teach only just the process very well, the people then rely on the chemicals or that kit they can buy from you or somewhere else, and it can work for weeks, months, and maybe some year to certain point when the photographer will have a problem with some chemicals or, you know, some environment failures and so on. And the question is, if you train the people also how to prepare chemicals, of course you have to enhance the materials, the time. It's much more time, much more demanding for people. And what I wanted to ask you or to say here, I have also opportunity to teach the process. I have done it in the past several times, and now, for instance, I have also possibility in coming weeks teach some people. But the question is, they didn't ask me about how to prepare chemicals, yeah, and I have offered them to make the workshop with start of this how to environment, basic things, to have a general knowledge about the process. And if they do not have this basic let's say know-how, how to prepare chemicals, how to work with the whole environment, equipment connected with Wet Plate Collodion, it's, I think, very maybe not professional, or from my point of view, maybe I will cancel this workshop, because in this concrete situation, the people want from me just to teach the process, and this is the typical situation. They do not care about the chemicals, how to mix them, how to save them at all, how to wash them. This is for me really big question, because I have offered them to learn them how to prepare developer, fixer, silver bath, everything what they need before we can start to work with the process itself. And
Jan, you're on. You know, I appreciate what you're saying, and you can make that choice whether you want to do that or not. But you're talking about just teaching that, showing them how to mix the chemicals, right?
Yeah.
We're not even talking about what those chemicals do. and how they interact with the other compounds in the process, right? We're not even talking about that. We're just talking about, I want to show you how to bake a cake, and you don't want to get this close to your face, and you want to, that's not, and they don't even want to know that. They don't even want to know that. And we're not even talking about why you evaporate the water out of the grain alcohol. We're not even talking about what a plasticizer is. We're not even talking about any of that. So those people will inevitably end up back at your inbox or at my inbox or someone's inbox saying, what's wrong? And then somebody has to take the time to educate them and go through all of that over and over again. I don't have a big institution behind me paying me to do that. I don't have that. Some people do. I don't have that. So it's a question of, respect and valuing time and valuing information. And people are so cold and so hard today. When they want something, they're gonna just go right. I don't care about anything. I don't want to deal with people like that, right? I don't want to. Somebody was making fun of me that I screen my workshop attendance, and I don't know. Maybe you could say that. I guess you could say that. Most of my workshop attendants come through very professional and very how do we say it? Highly respectable people in the industry that come to my workshops, right? That's who they are. In fact, Eric, I just had Melissa Springer last weekend.
Yeah, I saw that online. Actually, it's funny. She actually bought the first tintype I ever sold was to her. Yeah, she's
amazing lady.
Yes, she is. I'm excited to see what she does with it.
Fantastic photojournalist, world-known, well-known, first documented AIDS back in the 80s as a photo documentarian. Incredible, incredible work. I had another young gentleman who lived in Rio for 5 years. He was just up and took a workshop. I have a lady coming from Australia next month to do a negative and a printmaking workshop. Those are the caliber of people that I work with and that I want to work with are the true professionals, the true committed people that really want to put a new arrow in their quiver on making work and a new process to work with. And you know what a professional will understand right off the bat? That they need to know how every single component of this works, because you're in control of that. You're in control of everything. How the image, what type of image you want to make, how the image looks, the color, the tone, the exposure, the composition. I mean, you're involved in everything, and then the chemistry supports all of that. And if you can't have control of that chemistry, you're not in control of your process. You're right, Mark. What's your name, Marcus? You're right, Marcus. You've got a digital camera in your hand, and you're just going like this. And Lightroom and Photoshop will figure it all out later for you. That's not how this works. And that's what throws people off. And they think somehow magically they can just get online and get access to all of this information again. And so the people that I work with are people who are committed or trying to be committed. Yes, granted, some people take a workshop and just like Jan said, that's not for me. I just went through it and it's too much. I don't want a dark room. I don't whatever it might be. I don't know. Some, not very many, but some do that. But most of the time it's people coming in to get their foot in the door, to get a handle on what this process is, how it works, and then delving down into each compound, each chemical, and seeing how it connects to the dots to the other stuff. And all of a sudden you have this, it's like not being able to read Chinese, learning Chinese, and then you open a book in Chinese up and you can read it. And it's like it's this epiphany, and these dots connect over the years, and you understand how things work, and you verify them through science. It's repeatable. You can repeat things over and over again. You see things over and over again. You gain a certain amount of knowledge through science in this process. That's just the facts. And so speaking of which, I had a note here. I'll segue real quick over here. I heard from Mr. Li in Hangzhou or Shanghai, China, and we have the green light on this show coming up in July. I'm going to be organizing there's no commerce involved. This isn't submit for $25 and we'll look at your work crap. This is I'll ask anyone who feels they have the chutzpah to throw some work in here. We'll take a look at it, and it's going to have to be either paper or metal, right? Prints, either paper prints or metal, tin types, aluminum types, ferrotypes, whatever, because they're going to have to be shipped to Shanghai. And this is the Artron show in July. So I've got the green light on that. In the next week or so, if you keep tabs on, I'll try to tweet it and Facebook and Instagram, all this stuff, and I'll have an inbox where you can start sending some work in, and we'll do a review in the next couple of weeks, and we'll select a bunch of people, and we'll put this show together. Keeping in mind, excuse me, I'm losing my voice. Keeping in mind, this show is heavily commercial. This is like, you don't need not show your fine art work, your portraiture, your documentary work, whatever you want to do. That's awesome, and it doesn't have to be commercial work. It's just in that vein where I don't want to sound so crass, but if it's strong and it's good, you'll be able to sell some work in this show. Let's put it that way. If you want to sell some work, if you can sell some work. You know, we have this idiom in English. We say, we made the dog food, we put it out there, let's see if the dogs eat it. We never know. So, how often is that show a year? This is going to be, and thank you for asking, Marcus. This is going to be, the first show will be at Artron in Shanghai. It's the Sotheby's auction. They run that place. Then that show, it'll go on a traveling exhibition. The next place it'll go is Hangzhou, and then maybe Beijing. I'm not sure. It'll go through China. It'll travel through China. So there'll be a lot of great opportunities. I'm actually going to put 6 pieces of ghost dance in. I'm going to do 6 pieces of ghost dance. I actually, in my flailing, I actually have some metal plates that, whole plate metal plates that I'm going to put in. Yeah, when I say commercial, almost as an opposition to art, what do you mean? Eric's asking that. What I mean by that is this would be something more to look at this first show. Now, I don't know what the other subsequent shows and exhibition places will be, but this first show is definitely to buy work. A simple way to put it. There'll be there's a growing proportion of Chinese people that have disposable income. Their economy in some areas are doing quite well. So this is more of a call to say, hey, number one, do you want to show some work in Asia? And number two, this is a venue where they sell work there. It's made for that. So they sell work. And number three, it'll be able to kind of travel around. I know the next one is in Hangzhou, and I just got an email this morning with all the information, and I didn't have time before the show to get all that. I will have that in the next week, though. So anyone that's interested in that, and it can be any of your work. I don't want to mislead you by compartmentalizing, because, you know, any fine art, awesome. Commercial work, awesome. You know, it could be a vase and a rose, or it can be your own personal kind of exploration of yourself, or whatever, you know, wherever you go. So don't let me throw that out there. We want sorry, I am losing my voice. We want the board, the review panel in China looking at this to select your work for this show. So what I want to do is I want to give you the best opportunity and throw that out there, that this is a venue for selling photographs. They buy work there. And if you go to artron.net, I'll put it over here in the link. I hope that's right. Let me see. Let me go there. Search with Google. I got my old blind old man glasses on, so when I go like that, I'm acting like an old man, like an old grandpa. Let's see here. Artron.net. There it is. Yes, it's Artron.net. That'll get you there. Yes, it's in Chinese, but It's a very, very high-end auction house, exhibition hall. So Artron.net, not that, unless you read Mandarin Chinese, you can check it out. So that's going to be happening in the next couple of weeks. And I will do an email blast. I'll put it on my blog. I'll do Twitter. I'll get it out there as much as I can. And if you guys can help me push that word out and push it all your Collodionists, friends and people that you know, they'd like to look at everybody's work. Anybody that can be in. They are hungry for Western alternative process work. They really are. I don't know what's happening there, but the every plate that I made there was sold before I left. So if that's any indication. And I didn't even, I didn't have any project or plans. You saw that guy in the Netherlands bought those Chinese, the crucified fisherman, those 2 plates at Diptych. You saw those. So that's the kind of stuff, those are the kind of things that we want to keep on going, doing. Marcus asked how often is that show a year. I was in the Shanghai Biennial 3 years ago, 2009 or 2010, I can't remember, somewhere in there. And the Shanghai Biennial, obviously you know how often that is. And these shows, the ones that, and this is done, by the way, and I need to pitch this, by the way, the Collodion Collective Asia, they call it TCCA. That's what I want to China to do, is help them open that up and get that going. That's who's doing this. The TCCA is doing these exhibitions. So this is the beginning of something that will be at least once or twice a year. And right now, what I have on my plate is that it looks like I'll be going back to China next year, and I hope to do a full exhibition on my work there. But this will be an ongoing thing. The idea behind it, again, on this first initial one, and I'll let you know if it changes for the subsequent exhibitions, but the first one is very, like, sell your work, patrons looking to come in and purchase, and you can say that about any gallery, right? But I guess I want to emphasize this is a little more realistic for selling your work, is what I want to say, rather than having a show in Kansas City. No offense, Kansas City, but I'm just saying, How would that work? I send my work to you. No. How that works is if your work's selected, and again, only paper prints or metal, no glass, and it just won't fly. Literally won't fly. So paper or metal or plastic or stainless steel or whatever you have your images on, right? That won't break, basically. So if you're selected, you'll put that package together, whether 2, 3, 4, 5 photos, whatever it might be, 1 photo, whatever it might be. You'll bundle it up and you'll ship it over to the gallery, and they will receive it. They'll give you notification. They'll take care of all of that. And if you're willing to, if you're selected, the work's either going to sell or it's going to go into the traveling kind of exhibition through China. Framed? No frame, not framed. And thank you for asking these, because I'm just putting it in my head and trying to think through it. And I didn't have a chance to go thoroughly through that email this morning. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, and I'm not going to use empirical measurements. I'm going to do it all metric, and I encourage all of the U.S. or non-European, non-Asian, non-metric people, all the empirical people, to use the metric measurements. I don't know why we still use inches and all that, but I'm going to take white archival map board, and I haven't decided. Mine are whole plate images, 6.5 by 8.5 inches, empirical measurements, and I'm going to frame those up with a double mat. So it'll be on a mat board with a hinged mat cover, and that's going to be, I'm going to have 6 of those, and I'm going to stack those up. I'm going to box them up and ship them over, if they're accepted. So, good questions. Do I price the plates by myself? Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And I would look at, they'll be converted over into RMB, yuan, the Chinese currency, which is currently around 6.5 RMB to the dollar. I would look at that and base, well, it doesn't matter. Yeah, put them in euros, put them in dollars. They'll convert them over, but keep in mind that it's a fairly affluent crowd. It will be the patronage, the viewership will be, don't put 25 euros on your plates, right? I mean, that's what I'm not trying to tell you how to price them, but don't put 100 euros on a plate or some ridiculous thing like that, right? Price them appropriately, and don't put a Sally Mann price or a somebody that that's over the top, right? 8,000 euros for my whole plate. I don't think that'll go. Do you price? Okay, sorry, maybe I said it already, but how do you get selected? How you get selected is in the next week. I apologize that I wasn't prepared because I thought I'd have the email before this. The last show, I told you to have more information. I just got that information, well, probably last night, but I just saw the email this morning. So I will follow up, Marcus. This next week, you'll see follow my social media stuff. You'll see a call for the Artron Shanghai show, and we'll have an email address set up where you can send digital copies of your work, and there'll be a criteria of what's the title, the size, the material, that general information. That's what we'll want to know. And if you do mat them, do not frame them, but if you do mat them in a metric measurement. So Mr. Lee will be in charge of framing and putting that show together. So they do a fantastic job. I've been in their shop, in his studio. He does all right. It's amazing, guys. I wish everyone could see it. No, I'm happy. I came in the show a little pissed off today, a little upset about the whole. I'm really the disregard for, the lack of respect on one hand, not respect necessarily for me, but self-respect in trying to learn the process. And then when I started counting up, I said, how many of these do I get? And I started looking into that, and as the number increased, and it doesn't feel like I answer 100 questions a week, but as the numbers increased, the more my kind of the more frustration built up in me, and I was like, man, I got to say something about this because, there's a lot of people that watch this show afterward. A lot of people that watch it would never come in, would never watch it live, would never do any of that, but they want the information. You know who you are. They want the information, so they watch it later, and that's great. I appreciate it. I love it. But at the same time, I know it gets out there and people watch these, and all I want to do, I'm not trying to come down on anybody. I'm not trying to lord over anyone. I'm not saying any of that, and I apologize if it sounds like I'm being mean or I'm saying things in the pejorative or just hard on you. But really, I'm on the receiving end of this, and I bet you if you ask any of the other two guys that do this, they would probably say something similar. But it's usually I seem to attract. For some, maybe it's my presence. Maybe people will tell me, "Hey, Quinn, quit putting your shit out there so much. You're all over the place. People can get a hold of you easy. You respond. You answer the questions. And Eric, I want to say something just on a personal note. I have your email, brother man. I just haven't responded to it yet because guess what? I get 100 emails a week about technical questions.
Actually, you did respond.
I did?
Yeah, you told me to write an email kind of explaining, in depth a little bit more, because it was more of a conceptual thing. It wasn't a technical
Okay.
one.
I'm sorry. I thought I didn't answer you. See how confused? So you know my frustration now?
Right.
I mean, I don't want people to stop sending me questions. I want the nature and the evolution to continue about trying to help themselves. And I want to help people that hit up against the wall. What I've given to be able to sit down and throw an email out at some of this stuff that I ran into, I would have loved that. But so I don't want to cut anybody off. I just want to make people a little more aware. And not just for me, anybody that you're emailing about technical questions. You guys are out there teaching it, and you're getting bombarded and stuff. That's buenos dias, Carlos. It's nice.
Buenos dias.
So
How are you?
I had a situation yesterday that's a good example of this. So I had a girl come over, a model. I've got this shot I've been trying to get for over a year now, and I brought the camera in before she got here. I did a little test shot just to make sure the chemicals were looking right. Looked pretty good. Contrast was nice. Then I went next door to the studio where they have they have a room that would have been a better setting for the shot, had better lighting. And we go in there, and then all of a sudden when I get back, our first plate is yellow. There's almost no contrast. It's looked, just an unusable plate. Really frustrating. I'd set up a whole, someone else's studio, had a girl come over here, take her time out. Shot after shot, same problem. It was, just just a dull image. And so now I'm in this troubleshooting mode where my test shot was fine, and now nothing seems to be working. So, I was in this forging championship last year in Italy, and this Polish blacksmith, I'm also a blacksmith, so this Polish master brought me to the side and said, there are a lot of people here that are doing amazing work. This is the World Forging Championship. It's like the Olympics for metal artists. And he said, but half of them don't know metal. They make all this great art, beautiful art, but they don't even understand what they're doing really. You know what I mean? They make something, they can pull off a one-off, and then they go on to the next project, and they may pull off the actual art itself, but they don't really understand how to work metal, some proper techniques. There's, all the technicalities of heating metal and how to work it. And I felt like the same thing happens with wet plate. You can get away with making a lot of good images, and then, but really not understand necessarily the chemistry. But then a situation like yesterday happens where if you haven't done all that homework and you don't have all that technical understanding, you look like an idiot, you waste people's time, and you got this shot that you really had your heart set on. And eventually we figured out kind of what it was, but it took me 3 hours to figure out kind of what was going on.
What was going on? That's a great story. What was going on? Well,
so at first, I'm panicking, so I thought, well, why would I have such a flat, ugly, unusable image when I already had one earlier in the day that worked out fine? So, because at first I was thinking there were some strange things going on with the developer, and I knew the humidity had changed, and I knew the temperature had gone up that day. My darkroom for the first time this year was actually pretty hot. So then I started thinking, well, maybe because parts of the developer that I didn't let sit long enough had contrast. So then I started thinking, I think, and I was wrong, but I originally thought, well, maybe that's it, because the part that I didn't develop much, it looks okay, And so then I started thinking, well, maybe I need some acetic acid in my developer. It's just been sitting on the shelf for a while. I don't remember. I didn't date my developer. I wasn't sure how old it was. And usually I go through it enough to where, I have an older batch and a newer batch, so it's not a much variable. But I haven't been shooting much lately. Turns out after going through all that and just really, I had to come down and realize during all the commotion that, hey, your test image had contrast. It looked right. So forget chemistry. It's not chemistry. What's the one variable? You change settings. And even though the light was the same, it was coming in from a different angle. I went from my studio where I had I was all front lit from the one side, and then I went to another studio where there were mirrors everywhere, and I had light coming in from all directions. Turns out I've got a little, when I slide up my plate holder, some reason I think there's light now getting into the top. And so from all the directions of light, because I found that when I blocked my light, my one artificial light, it seemed to do a little better. I got a little bit of a better plate image. So then I thought, I got in front of between the camera and the artificial light, and it seemed better. So then basically I figured out some light has been leaking into my camera.
Awesome, awesome story right there. Let me segue on this, Eric, because I want to tell you something here. So that's a perfect story of mitigating or changing things, having things go one way, changing a variable, just that one variable, and you may not even notice that. If Eric would have contacted me and said, oh my God, I'm in the middle of this shoot, the first thing I would have done is say, look at the plate. Look at the plate, and it looks yellow, flat, low contrast, just nothing there. The first reaction would be, we need to check something we can check really quick, and that's chemistry. So I would have said, take a clear glass plate, pour the collodion, sensitize it in the silver, develop it for 15 seconds in 20 degrees Celsius, 30, 40, 50% humidity. arrest it underwater, and fix it. If you pull that glass plate out and it's perfectly clear, it's not your chemistry. It's a really quick test. As long as you don't have any light leaks in your dark room or your dark box, that plate should be perfectly clear. The second thing is, if you run that chemical test without exposing it and you have a film over it, you take that cotton ball, and you run it over that plate. And if that veiling comes off, that's unexposed free silver that you've allowed the developer to develop. And it will wipe off. It's called a veiling or a scumming, they used to call it. It's just unexposed silver that you've developed. You can wipe it off with a cotton ball. We've all seen this, especially in the heat of summer, or if you don't have enough restrainer or whatever. So if it wipes off, that tells you you need more restrainer in your developer, just like Eric just said. His first inclination was, oh, I need some more glacial acetic acid. And the question is what does the restrainer do? The restrainer, there's a chemical restrainer and an organic restrainer. Chemical restrainer like glacial acetic acid, pickling vinegar, white vinegar, acetic acid, and glacial acetic acid is the strongest, is what I use. And then there's the organic restrainers. They work more on a physical level, honey, molasses, beer, those kinds of things. But I use a chemical restrainer because it's strong and I can get immediate results and see what I'm doing. But what that does is it holds back all the places that wasn't on the plate that wasn't struck with light energy, right? Converting those halides into a state of pre-silver, if you will. Then you pour the developer on. The iron is the reducer. The iron converts the halides, the silver iodide and the silver bromide, into the pure metallic state of silver. That's what the developer, the iron, does. That's the reducer. The restrainer holds back all the free silver on that plate from developing while you allow those highlights, midtones, and on into the shadows come into the plate. Then you arrest development before any of that free silver has a chance to develop. And so that would be a case where you'd say, check the chemistry. He would have found that his chemistry is fine. Then he would start looking for that light leak. So that may have shaved an hour or so off of the process. Who knows, though? But great example. Thank you for sharing that, Eric. That's great. So,
can I share my story with the pinholes, the black dots? You helped me with the other day?
Pardon me?
You helped me with my black spots the other day.
Yeah. Here's another good one. Aaron posted on Facebook the other day, or yesterday, or whenever it was, and he had these little black holes on his plate, and you get real close and you look at it. Let me tell you what those are. That's what happens when your bath is old, and this is a really difficult concept to convey because we say, oh, we need to saturate the brand new silver bath with free iodides. So we put a plate in there and we saturate the bath with free iodides. And that's good. That's so it doesn't pull off from the plate and you get that white, flat, nasty, no contrast plate because your bath isn't sensitized, right? So this little ion exchange has to happen, and there has to be an equilibrium, kind of like plants. A cell plant has to have the same consistency of salt inside that cell wall as outside that cell wall. This is kind of a similar situation where you want that bath to be full of iodides so it doesn't steal from the plate, but once it gets so full of iodides, those iodides start reducing or start precipitating out, falling on the plate and causing little tiny black pinholes. Those are little tiny holes, are actually little tiny pieces of iodide. And that's what comes out of the bath. And that's what you have to do. You have to sun it, do heavy maintenance. The only way you can really remove those is with like a sodium bicarbonate or a real basic china clay, something to physically pull that out of the bath, then sun your bath, filter its pH, SG, all that good stuff. So that was good.
Heavy maintenance is the next step, but it was really tricky because I didn't see those black spots until after it had dried. So that's why I thought it was something with a fixer or something other problem.
Yeah, and that can be real deceiving when you're going through the process and you see the process can actually kind of deceive you in appearing to be one thing because it happens in this stage, but really it's three steps back where the original problem started, and that's just the manifestation of it. So it can kind of throw you for a loop here or there, you know, that kind of thing.
But I kind of had that reading Chinese experience when I understand how it works. You know, when you reply, it's really good.
Awesome. That's a good positive thing, and that's, you know, that's what I'd like to see happen is the whole community kind of come together and coalesce or kind of circle around this idea that we do truly want the knowledge and we want to help each other out and we want to share the knowledge and try to make some advances to maybe find products or techniques or who knows, whatever, to make it better, to make the process easier or better or more efficient or something in that positive realm. We won't get there by just physically repeating and emulating actions that we see other people do. We have to get down into the weeds and really understand this stuff. And I know people will argue with me and say, Quinn, I just want to make photographs. I'm not a chemist. I don't want to do any of that crap. I don't want to do any of that. I'm just a photographer. And my response is maybe you're a different kind of photographer then. Maybe you are a Canon 5D or a 120 film person or a this or that. Maybe collodion isn't for you. It's not for everyone. Obviously it's not. So I don't have any problem telling people that say, oh, I don't want to learn about chemistry. It's kind of like saying, oh, I don't want any keys to my car. I don't need keys. Really? What are you going to do with your car? Let it sit there in your driveway, in your garage? I don't need keys. No, you do need keys. Those keys start your car. Those keys are the basis of this thing. So when they tell me that or I hear that, I just want to say, well, pick a different type of photography. I mean, really, that's as simple as it gets. Pick a different type of photography. And everybody's learning speed's going to be different. I'm not coming down on anybody about that. I'm coming down on people, and you know who you are, people that say, I don't care about, just get the answer. I want this thing to turn out this way so I can scan it and get it up on Facebook and get likes. Likes, 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 likes. That's what we want. We want likes. So anyway, so let's any more questions on, oh, sorry. In average, a fresh bath of silver would be good for how many full plates? That, Carlos, I would say a little more than that, 50. Before here's two good tips. Carlos asks, in an average, a fresh bath of silver would be good for how many whole plates, or the 6.5, 8.5 inches, almost 8 by 10. How many? He says 30. Maybe depending on your methodology and everything. But the best way to test that is if you don't have any problems with your images, keep going. You might get 100 out of that. Who knows? Temperature, humidity, the environment, whatever. You might get 100 out of there. Or you might get 20 before you start seeing streaks or you start seeing other things. A couple of things. Smell the bath. If you can smell the alcohol and the ether in there, really strong, you're always going to have a tiny bit. But if it's really strong, that tells you that the bath is saturated with solvent, and you're going to start getting these like model marks and these solvent streaks, and your plate's going to get mucked up. You're going to have artifacts on the plate that's not from the developer and that's not from the collodion floor. It's going to be from the silver. And they're going to usually manifest as streaks on the plate. So if you smell alcohol and ether in your silver bath really strong, it's time to air it out. Let it air and sun it out. Put it outside, put a net over it, put it in a big jar, and sun it out. That will evaporate all those solvents out. If you don't have time to do that and your bath is exhausted or you're having problems with your bath and you just ran 30 plates through it and you're starting to see, oh, it's a little flat, it's a little muddled, it's a little this or that, what you want to do is every minute of that 3-minute silver tank bath, pull your plate up and look at it and push it back down. Every minute. Pull it up, look at it, and push it back down. That'll prevent those striations and those model marks from hooking onto that plate. That's a physical action you have to do during sensitization. You don't want to keep that bath like that. You want to maintain it after you're done with that shoot, But if you need to get through something or you need to make photographs that particular time and you don't have time to take care of that, that's an easy way to do it. Up and down every minute, and your plate will be super clean. That kind of mitigates that solvent saturation. Now, if you have things like Aaron had, the pinholes, the excess iodides, organic material in the bath, your bath is saturated with, your bath gets saturated with nitrates, solvents. This interaction, the ion exchange between the plate and the silver bath, leaves a lot of byproduct in the silver bath. And you have to deal with that at some point in time. And if you've ever taken a bath and it's been low and you poured distilled water in the bath and it turns cloudy and milky right away, that means that bath was just completely saturated with iodides. And that water's, even distilled water, 0 ppm. There's no organic material in there to interact. That's a physical state of water interacting with those iodides and nitrates, all kinds of stuff in the silver silver nitrate. Those byproducts build up in the bath. The solvents build up in the bath, and you have to monitor and maintain both sides of that. But I would say 50 plates. Also, my homemade collodion is way thinner than the USP one. Is there a way to make it thicker? The only way to make it thicker is to add more nitrocellulose. That's really the only way. So are you using cotton balls to nitrate? Carlos? Can I unmute? You need to unmute yourself. Okay, yeah. So you're using cotton balls to so what Carlos is doing, guys, is he's actually taking cotton balls and he's using nitric acid, and what he's doing is he's creating nitrocellulose. And nitrocellulose, so cotton balls, you nitrate cotton balls, they'll look like kind of matted cotton. They'll still look like cotton balls, but you'll have a ball of them like that. And they'll be nitrated, highly explosive, very dangerous, very difficult to handle. But then you put alcohol and ether to that nitrocellulose, now you have collodion. So he's asking, my collodion is much thinner than the USP, plain USP collodion. USP is United States Pharmacopoeia, pharmacological, yeah? But so the only way to make that thicker would be to actually add more physical nitrocellulose to balance out the solvent content. I let it melt for 45 days. Awesome. You know what, Carlos? You know what would be neat to do? If you could ever film that, or if you ever wanted to come on the live show here and do that or demonstrate that for us, we'd love to see it. ¿Hablas inglés? Do you speak English? Unmute yourself. Let's see. Yes, he does. I mean, he's typing English, so obviously I would think he does. Can you show us what you have right now? Unmute yourself, Carlos. Talk to us, brother.
Yeah.
There you. Yes, I hear you.
Okay. Well, hi everyone there.
Hello.
I first started it like 2 years ago. I went to take this job at Mexico. When I came back to Costa Rica, I discovered that I can't import the USP collodion. It's almost impossible. I have, that's why I know it's different, but I kind of have to do it, you know, under the radar. So I went out to look for some cotton plants. I found 2 different kinds in my country. I collect them.
¿Dónde está?
Costa Rica.
Oh, Costa Rica.
I'm from
Okay.
Costa Rica. Yes. So I found these 2 different kinds of cotton plants. I took enough. I took off the seeds, which I don't know if it's necessary or not to take them off because it takes a lot of time to clean it. So I cleaned it, and then I did all the process with the acids and the potassium in order to make that cotton into nitrocellulose.
Exactly.
I actually make an average of like 30 grams of nitrocellulose for 500 liquid milligrams of either both alcohol and ether.
Okay. He froze up there for just a second. Sorry, he froze up there. Costa Rican internet is questionable.
My recipe, 30 grams of 30 grams.
Oh, you just got choppy. Your internet connection just got choppy there for a second. So you got 30 grams of cotton and 250 mils of alcohol and 250 mils of ether.
Yes, sir.
And 30 grams of nitrated cotton.
Yeah, exactly. So my collodion is way thinner than the USB one. So after wasting some, I decided to put the melted salts, directly into that dilution and not put any more alcohol or ether.
Oh.
And it works fine.
There you go. That's a good idea, Carl. There you go. Yes.
Yeah, but the layer is way fragile. I actually had to let it dry a little bit more because after I take the shots and when I start and I develop it, it's fine. When I put the water to stop it, I have to be very careful there because it washes off a little bit. So that was the one problem that I encountered with my homemade collodion.
Yeah, that would make sense, and that would tell you that there's not enough ether in there, right? And that's what you've held back. You haven't added the additional ether, so that evaporation of the ether adheres and hardens that collodion. And so if you don't have that and you put it under anything forceful, it can just kind of wash it away.
Yes. Now, the other thing that I've been doing with all the collodion, I try different mixtures. I have potassium, ammonium. I also have I have like three different salts: potassium, ammonium, sodium. So all the leftovers, I pour them all in one single batch, up to I have more. And then I decided last week. Actually, you advised me to do that, and I diluted it because it was very, very thick. I could not even pour it in the plate because it was way too dry.
Yeah.
But it was okay. I kind of like doubled the final amount with alcohol and ether. I tried it again to see if the iodize will lower, and it did, and it actually worked pretty good.
Good.
But it has a lot of salts in it. I mean, it's all of them that I've been trying for the last 2 years combined.
Wow.
And it worked perfectly. It has great contrast, actually.
Awesome.
But
good to know.
I don't even know how to measure it. The sensibility is very, very low. It's like 0.8 ISO. I mean, my exposure are quite long, and well, in Costa Rica we had a lot of sun, so I actually have to be careful from that. Direct sun will be way too strong.
Yes.
Because we're closer to the equator, so.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
I'd rather use early mornings, in the afternoons.
It's best.
But so far,
Roger brought up a good point, and he said if you could measure the specific gravity of the USP collodion, you could maybe. I don't know though that would work actually. Yeah. He's trying to figure out if I'm reading his chat message right. He's trying to say maybe we could figure out what the plain USP collodion percentage of cotton to the solvents would be, and figure that out and have. But it sounds like you've got a pretty good handle on it now.
Yeah, that's one more test to do. I actually also, because importation is very complicated, I actually started to do my own silver nitrate, and that worked fine. Although I made a lot of mistakes in the first batch, I'm actually about to make a second batch pretty soon. But the person at my university that is in charge of the lab, because you have to do that in a fume container.
Absolutely.
You can't do that in your cartridge.
Yeah.
And,
we'll buy real quick, guys, off the gas of that. You put nitric acid with silver. The byproduct of that will do you in quickly.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, there is no way to do that in your backyard.
No.
And the professor that is in charge of the lab is sick, so I have to wait. But one thing that is interesting...
Carlos, give us some insight on how you made your first successful silver nitrate. What's the quantity of silver, acid, those kinds of things?
Okay, well, I bought 200 grams of silver, which is very cheap here, like, I don't know, a little bit higher than $150 perhaps.
Oh, wow.
And I also bought 1 liter of acid, the acid. So I actually...
Nitric acid?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I used like 400 cc's of the acid.
Do you know what percentage? Is that a 70+%? How strong is it?
It was lower than 70. It was like 60%.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't get it, I mean, pure here.
I wondered, yeah. I wondered.
And
let me show you what where is my, here it is. This is, and you guys will be able to read this. Oh, yeah, look at this.
Peligro, that is in Spanish, good.
This came from Barcelona. I brought a lot of chemistry back from Spain. So this is 60% as well.
Yeah,
so
60.
This is what you're using, 200 grams of silver, and what else?
I had this fancy little heater that you put something inside and then twist around. So it took like a while until it heated. It started to bubble. It turned dark orange. And after 20 minutes or so, there was nothing in it. It was completely gone. And so everyone would go, where did my $200 worth of silver went? I let it cool down a little bit, and then you have to put it on another separate container with ice.
Yep.
And so when you put it inside the ice, it totally, dries then now you have your silver nitrate. I made a mistake my first time. I used the not the normal container beaker size, like a glass, the ones that look funny like this,
Flask,
Yeah, those. So I could not take it out. So I melted again, switch it to another container. In that second melting, it was harder to dry when it cold on the ice. So for the next batch, I'm going to use the proper container so I can, actually pick it up right there. Because the one problem I had afterwards was to dry it. I actually bought a dehumidifier. Oh, Jesus.
Humidifier.
Yeah, the humidifier, and it was still wet. So it worked perfectly.
So what was your return on 200 grams? What crystals did you get back weight-wise?
260 grams.
How many?
260 probably.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, I had a lot more than what I started with. So it's kind of like, 100 grams of silver nitrate in Costa Rica will be around $500.
Yeah.
So I made with $200, 2.5 more than that.
Yeah, good. Be safe, Carlos. Be safe. It sounds like you're doing it right, but be safe. Did you use ice cubes when you made your nitrocellulose? Did you put them in a glass of ice? Did you use ice cooling your nitrocellulose as well, or no?
The what?
Did you use ice cubes making your nitrocellulose? Did you cool your nitrocellulose with ice cubes?
Yes, that helped me out to, instead of it, that was the one way to make it, like dry immediately. Yeah. So you can pick it up. And then the one good thing is like my byproduct, which will be the acid left over, is already saturated with silver. Really, really saturated with silver. So anytime that I need to check on my acidity, I just use that, and it's perfect. It's already with silver. So and it worked fine. I mean, it was perfect. Besides the fact that it was a little bit more, I mean, not as dry as it should be, but it has worked fine. I'm already wear them all. I mean, I use it also. I had to make more. Actually, I had a little accident in my studio, and I dropped one of the batch. I mean, I dropped one. I mean, almost a liter worth of silver that I was trying to clean. I was like, oh no, Jesus! But
Well,
I mean, it was one that I needed to clear. Yeah.
Yeah.
I beg your pardon?
At least nobody got hurt. I mean, a liter of silver—that's a lot of silver, but.
Yes. No one got hurt.
Are you mixing your silver 9%? Are you putting 90 grams into 1 liter?
Yeah, 90 grams to 1 liter. And checking out around my neighborhood, I found this medical supply store, and they happen to have tried distilled water. Not only distilled water, tried distilled water. And I have using that one for my developer, and I have been using that for my silver, and it does make a difference.
Yeah.
I mean, who would have thought? But instead of only distilled water, try distilled water is excellent. I didn't know it would be that good.
You mean 3 times distilled?
Yes,
Yeah.
3 times distilled water. Yeah, 3 times.
Here's a little trick for you guys. When you check your distilled water, if you go to your local nursery, your plant nursery, let me show you here. Hold on. This is called a TDS meter, total dissolved solubles, or ppm, parts per million. When you take your, and I'll give you an example of this. Let me grab my water. Let me grab a cup. I'm going to use two different cups here, just so we don't cross-contaminate. My clean little cups here. I'm going to take one of them, and I'm going to put distilled water in here. Set that there. Watch, I'll spill this stuff all over my computer. I'll put this one here. Oh wait, I don't want that. I don't want distilled in that. I'll use my drinking water here. I drink bubbly Wasser mit Gas. Wasser mit Gas and distilled water. So what we'll do here, you can see it here. Well, I'll hold them up here. I'm going to take my meter here. You say 0 ppm, right? So if I stick it over here into this one, you're going to read what? How many parts per million? Wow, 23 parts per million. That's pretty clean water. 23 parts per million, virtually nothing. Now if we clean this off and we check this one, zero parts per million. So to your comment about 3 times distilled, once you have 0 parts per million, you have no organic material in that water. There's nothing there. There's no hard water. There are no minerals. It's absolutely free of anything. In my drinking water, I even have 23 parts per million. I have 230 parts per billion. But which is 23 parts per million is absolutely nothing. But 0 parts per million. So when we talk about using distilled water or distilled or iron, what's the European called? I've drank distilled water. Distilled water. What's the European?
Iodized.
Demineralized. Thank you. Demineralized, right? When you look at those two things, and 0 parts per million, meaning they have no organic material in them. Now you know why when you mix silver nitrate with a cup of tap water from your faucet, it turns milky, turns blue and milky. That's the silver nitrate interacting with the organic material. When you mix it with a distilled water or deionized water, nothing happens. It's perfectly clear. There's nothing there to interact with it. So as long as you have, I don't know how much these things cost, but they're cheap, you can check your water. And if you're getting contamination or you're getting other unwanted steps in the process, check your water. Make sure your water is good and clean. I had some water in Spain that was in the jug, supposedly distilled, bought it from a corner bodega there, and man, it probably had 600 parts per million of water. Man, it clouded the silver bath, it destroyed the developer, killed the varnish, I mean, all kinds of stuff. So a little investment, a little science, finding out what materials you're working with. Don't just assume that you're working with 0 parts per million and you might have 500 parts per million. Out of my faucet here, I have a reverse osmosis system here, but right out of my regular faucet with the chloramines, ammonia and chloramines, I'm at 600-700 parts per million. Are you kidding me? That stuff is loaded. That is going to interact with your chemistry. So those are important things to know.
Quinn, thank you.
Yay! Welcome, Dale.
Thank you. I've been here for about a half an hour now, kind of sitting here, and I have to go again, but I think you just answered my question. With respect to the distilled waters, you know, I have problems with my silver, and I've eliminated what I thought was every possibility of what the issue was. And the only thing that I haven't eliminated was the distilled water. And excuse me. And where I'm coming from is when I'm doing salt prints. Of course, I'm mixing distilled water, silver. I can't recall the number. I think it's 30% or some such thing off the top of my head. But it's that silver never touches any organic material. It's in a bottle. It's poured out in a small measuring cup or whatever I'm using, and it never gets. No, it's not possible for it to get contaminated. But yeah, when I look at the silver, I see all these little white round ball type particles in the bottom of that silver. So it can only be organic in the silver itself or in the water, one or the other.
You're actually that's silver chloride. You're actually precipitating the silver out of the silver somehow. There's something in there that's pulling. That's not organic material. That's actually, if they're white and they're bald, they're covering on the bottom. That's a precipitate of chloride. There's a salt in it. You're pulling it out. You're pulling the silver out of the water somehow. That wouldn't be organic material. I mean, I guess it's organic material, but
any idea off the? I guess I'm taking a sidestep here because I was about to say I've got to run again, but they can wait.
Okay, real quick. Sorry, Dale. Real quick. It's probably after you float your prints on the silver bath, you see those balls.
I'm not floating my prints. What I'm doing is actually brushing the silver on the paper.
Oh, okay. Then if you're not floating your prints, definitely check your ppms on your distilled water and see where you're at. Even a slightest bit, you might have something in there or something in the environment. If you're mixing a 15 or 20% solution to print on, probably a 15%. It's 150 grams to 1 liter of water. You may be sucking something out of the air into the nitrate that's pulling that silver out. So get with me. Let me know. I'll help you out on that, Dale.
Yeah, it's been a fun exercise, and just to add a little bit of levity to the exercise or to the discussion, as you know, the letters N and C have a massive difference on the outcome of dropping into the silver bath.
Oh, say what again? The letters what? N
and C, meaning nitric and citric acid.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Tell them a little story. This is what happens, guys. This is real life, and tell them a little story if you have time, Dale.
Oh, it's kind of funny in hindsight, but I could swear, but I shouldn't. But it was one of those OMG moments. Quinn and I, relatively new to the process, and there's the alchemy is really challenging to understand all the nuances and so on and so forth. So Quinn was coaching me through how to do heavy maintenance on my silver bath because I had some issues with my silver. It was for the first time, and he had indicated that I should put, I think it was, if I recall correctly, on a liter of silver, about 15 drops of nitric acid to increase the contrast and freshen it up, if you will. well, of course, me and my stupidity and not listening well to my instruction, I somehow decided that should become citric acid, and put all due diligence, put 15 drops of, mixed it up so it was liquid, not crystal anymore, and with all good diligence and following my mentor's almost specific instructions, I put in the citric acid as opposed to the nitric acid, all 15 drops, and man, weird things started to happen. Let's just say I've reduced the silver and I've thrown it out and started over. I was, to say that a dog chasing his tail was akin to me trying to fix that silver would be an understatement. So I gave up. So there's a big difference between the letters N and C.
The good news, Dale, is that you've given this panel and these viewers and the people that watch this in the future, you've given them definitive scientific proof that citric acid will not lower the pH in your silver nitrate. Don't use it. And secondly, I should have caught that comment that you made in the messages saying, I only have powder. That's the only thing Mike sent me. And I should have got onto that, but you know, when you're, I don't know, it's just like, no, it shouldn't be powder. It's nitric acid. I mean, it's nitric acid right there. I don't know what.
Yeah. Rub it in. The only thing, it did two things actually. It did two things. Number one is the only thing that citric acid will raise is blood pressure, and the other thing it does is reinforces the understanding of the absolute need, no other way to put it, need for accuracy when working with this stuff. Before you can go out and play and have fun, you've got to have your baseline down pat and understand what's going on. And that's what I was trying to do, was to maintain everything on a baseline to get then go out and play. Didn't work, had fun, learned my lesson, so now everyone can laugh at my expense.
Well, no, it's not. It's a good learning lesson. It might be expensive, but at the end of the day, we're talking about having those epiphanies and having those moments. Some are just, you know, too many things going on, like Dale's got that going on, and he's citric acid. Well, it must be because that's what I've got in my mind. Oversights, those kind of things. And then the straight up just not knowing, absolutely not knowing, that component plays into it. But those are the learning steps. What I'd like to do, I consider myself an educator, and as an educator, my goal is to help you, give you the tools to help think critically and get you past some of those big hurdles, both financially and time. Those are the two reasons I ever wrote a book or ever started teaching a workshop, is that no one should have to spend a year trying to learn the basics of this process, because that's what I did. And so the impetus was, I'll try to make this easier for people. I like to I'm a teacher anyway. I like to teach. So I started writing books. And the impetus, or the real driving force behind that, was to cut off the time learning curve and the financial learning curve. But
at the end of the day, though, Quinn, you've accomplished that, and I applaud, and I'll say again, public as I have before, I appreciate what you're doing. Well, at the end of the day, though, you have to have receptive students that listen to what is being said. And in this case, nitric and citric, I mean, there's literally only, that's why I say there's only one letter difference in the label, and if you don't read the label, you're on your own.
There's a whole big difference, though, in making a mistake, which you did, and completely ignoring the science or the facts. It's a big difference. And you know as well as I do, you can go on a lot of these forum boards. I don't do this anymore, but I know it's still going on. You can go on these boards and read all kinds of experts on what works and what doesn't, and look at this and do that and do that. I'm convinced it's just a matter of time before we're going to have an accident in this process.
It is confusing for sure, and it's very confusing. And if you don't have the baseline data, the baseline knowledge, then it can be dangerous. I listen to Carlos playing with gun cotton, and I go, oh boy, don't get me around that stuff, or we'll be in a volatile situation.
Well,
anyway.
until you can separate that C for citric acid and the N for nitric acid, no nitrocellulose for you.
At the end will become nitric, I'm sure. Anyway, I do have to run, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks again, Quinn. I appreciate your answer on the distilled water, and I think that may very well be my issue that I'm playing with.
Take a look. And by the way, if you missed, I don't know if you got in here or not, I'll reiterate this, but we talked about the Artron show in the next week or so. I'm going to be blasting out, and you guys will have basic information if you want to submit anything.
Fabulous. Thanks, Quinn. Thanks, guys. Have a good show. I got to run.
Dale.
Cheers.
So that's the real kicker, is having Dale's worked in photography for something like 30 or 40 years, something like that. And, you know, commercial work, doing the, you know, art director. He's a fine photographer. He makes wonderful images in that commercial sense. Now he's branching off, and he's getting into collodion like so many of us have, to get a breath of fresh air, to put a new arrow in your quiver for expression or ideas or meaning or however you want to look at it. It's really interesting to have insight from a perspective that's brand new. So I listen to Dale quite a bit. I mean, he messages me and we talk occasionally, and he'll send me a link to this board or that board, asking me, is that true? And that's where I started realizing, man, this is really this is getting out of hand really quickly that way. People out there saying things and promoting things that, I'll tell you one thing. My attorney looked over my book, and he gave me a thumbs up, and I have a big disclaimer even on my books because of lawsuits. I'm telling you, the guys that are out there putting information out that are dangerous, don't be surprised if it comes back and bites you in the ass, because people are being held accountable for the information. You make a positive knowledge claim, you need to back that up with evidence, right? That's how we debate. That's how we have discussions. You can't just go out there and drop knowledge, give it out to people, and it's dangerous, inaccurate, problematic, and not be held accountable. That's not right. So we'll see what happens over time as this movement continues to grow, and it's still growing. I think it started kind of exploding in 2008 or 2009, somewhere in there. Most people working in it today, with the exception of a handful, kind of got into the game in the mid-2000s. So most of the people in the game today should have a really good handle. I mean, God, even people, I'm thinking now, 2010 was 6 years ago. You know, that's a long time. So if you've been working in the process, I encourage you to maybe take a break from making photographs and look into the problematic areas that you know that you don't know about, and figure those out, and walk confidently in making your photographs when you need to, walk confidently when you have a problem. It's not if, but when, and they're constant, and walk strongly and proudly knowing that you can resolve that problem, and not being freaked out about saying, oh my God, I don't know what to do. This is, man, and if there's a feeling that I want to avoid, that's probably one of the emotional feelings that I dread most, is being in a situation where you're supposed to be making these photographs, you have something go wrong, and you've got people there, and you're clueless. Not a good scene, by any stretch of the imagination, especially if you're trying to build your reputation as a photographer, making commercial work, or whatever you might be doing. If you're alone and you're fidgeting around and messing around and you get dirty plates and nasty this or no plates at all, that's not that big of a deal. But when you get out into that public environment, you're teaching, you're doing commissioned work, you're doing commercial work, when you get out around people that are expecting to see what they see online and you can't even produce an image, it's not if, but when. If that hasn't happened, Eric just shared one today, if that hasn't happened to you yet, it will. It's just a matter of time. And those are the kind of things that I want to encourage people to say, to say to people, you don't have to have that happen. You can actually learn this process at a level that will mitigate or fix those problems should they arise. And they will arise. But you might go through, God, the last 5 commercial jobs I did, man, it went off without a hitch. Everything was perfect. Everything worked just fine. And now all of a sudden, you don't go out for a month. And you take your same gear, your same camera, your same chemistry, the same light, the same lens, everything, and you can't make a photograph. What happened? How do you start assessing that? How do you start breaking that down? And maybe that's what we should talk about. Maybe we should talk about one of these hangouts. We should have a discussion on a really deep 2-hour discussion on some of these chemicals and some of this misinformation, and allow me to show you the science, not Quinn's opinion, not Quinn's idea, the science behind this, and allow you to explore and discover that. I think for those of you that are interested in knowing how the process really truly works, just from a troubleshooting standpoint, it's going to be invaluable. For those of you that want to know because you just, I want to know for beyond just troubleshooting. I want to know because I've used some of these ideas to inform my work, to support the ideas behind my work. I can't talk about something I don't know about, so I need to know about it. And as that information has come in over the years and I've learned and I've progressed, I've been able to incorporate that into and support my work with those ideas. So it's not just troubleshooting to overcome a technical problem. Sometimes you want to know it because you have a connection to that. I've told you before, cyanide. Here I am in Germany. I'm working with cyanide. Most people have never looked up cyanide. They don't know the history on potassium cyanide. They don't know anything about it. They just use it to fix their images. A lot of them don't even know what fixing an image means. But here I am in Germany pouring cyanide on these plates as I stand in front of these decimated synagogues and things. And there I am standing there making a project in Germany about Kristallnacht, working with glass, working with these chemicals, a Zyklon B, a Jewish German scientist invented Zyklon B, which is potassium cyanide as an insecticide, and here I am pouring it on my plates. Kind of fascinating to me. I think that's interesting. So it's not just troubleshooting, it's also your basic information to know what materials you're working with. That's really important to me, to know the history of the materials, how the materials work, not just for troubleshooting, but for my own personal information to incorporate them into the work if I choose to do so. So there's a lot of different reasons to try to accomplish the technical, to know the technical. And people bring up, oh, what about Sally Mann? I know Sally Mann. She's got her own thing, and you're not Sally Mann, so let's just move on from that conversation because she's doing something completely different, right? Let's say she's in a different league. Let's just put it that way. And so for us, we need to work with this in the more traditional sense of learning how to process, kind of, like you learned anything. I don't know how they teach digital photography today. I don't know how I would even teach digital photography, but let's just say
very quickly, yeah.
Hello? Oh. Let's just say that. Anyway, there was a distraction here. Anyway, learning this stuff is really important. So maybe what I'll do over the next month is I'll think about maybe breaking off an hour of our time, and if people want to come in, maybe that's what I'll do. Maybe I'll break down the hour so people want to come in. They don't want the technical, but they want to look at somebody's work, or they want to look at somebody's work and whatever. We'll break it down in segments so we can spend an hour and keep it under control. But I'd like to spend at least an hour every time, maybe looking at some of these ideas, going through each one of these compounds, starting with the plate cleaner, and going through and dissecting every single component of this process. Should I do that? I feel like I want to, but if it's valuable, we can do it. If we don't want to do it, we won't. But Carlos says yes. Okay, we'll do it then, Carlos. We'll do it. Carlos has got some cotton here. There you go. Fresh off the tree. Look at that. That is awesome. That is really cool. So he makes his own nitrocellulose. He makes his own silver nitrate under a fume hood. Stressing under a fume hood. I have a fume hood over here, a big 4-foot Air Science fume hood with a great big powerful motor to pull out the daguerreotype fumes, you know, I was making daguerreotypes. And daguerreotype is dangerous, not so, the mercury is dangerous, but moreover the bromine fumes, the bromine. Nobody ever talks about the bromine in daguerreotype, and the bromine's the stuff that cauterizes your lungs if you breathe it in. So the silver nitrate and making silver nitrate under a fume hood, obviously crazy regulated that way, and then making nitrocellulose. And like Carlos said, I wouldn't have a problem making nitrocellulose. I really wouldn't. And like he says, if you keep it wet and you keep it moist and not let it dry out, you're pretty good to go. So it is. You can do that. The silver nitrate, I don't know if I'd have the gumption to do that. Although I do have a fume hood. I guess I don't need to do either one because I can get my chemistry here, and that's a whole different. The real need versus a novelty, that's a whole different question to my mind. So I understand why you're doing it. But anybody else have anything they want to share? I said at the beginning I was going to do a 2-hour gig today. That's what I have to keep it to because I'm extremely busy and I need to get some things done today. We have a major snowstorm going on outside. Let me take you over to the window. I'll show it to y'all. It's crazy. This is weather that I haven't seen in April for a while. Let me move this. Little studio window here. Let it focus and get light adjusted. Woo! That's cold. There's snow everywhere. So, with that said, I'm going to leave you from the snowy Rocky Mountains in Denver, Colorado, and I'll see you next month. I appreciate your time. Thanks, everybody, for coming in. I'm going to get out of here. Enjoy your rest of your evening, your afternoon, wherever you might be, and we'll see you next month, guys. Ciao.